Hello and welcome back to Thrones of Britannia. Well, I was originally going to call it Countdown, but I've ended up calling it Old versus New. I realise I think some of you may be disappointed that I haven't actually featured any of the new Thrones of Britannia. That's because I haven't got access to any of it beyond their own trailers and things. So in the last episode, I had just kicked the Welsh out of Cornwall, or Cerniu in this. And I did say I was going to attack Marcia, but I'm currently allied to them, and while I've still got an enemy in Wales, I thought I'd attack the Welsh instead. So, yeah, sorry about that. So, just choosing up buildings. I think it's... Yes, it's this episode I finally worked out how I can recruit mercenaries. Yeah, just here. You could click on the recruitment tab, and I thought, well, I can't recruit any of my own men because I haven't built anything to train them, but what are all these men doing? And I realised, oh, they're mercenaries. That's how you do it in this game. So you got mounted knights and all sorts, Viking raiders and all sorts going on there. Yep, more mercenaries. Viking Raider Cavalry. Could be useful. Horses are always useful. I generally go into battle with a ratio of sort of 2 units of infantry, 1 of missiles, and 1 of cavalry. Or with a very large army, you just try and have 2 cavalry overall, but a ratio of sort of 2 infantry to 1 archers I find seems to work. Sometimes, depending on things, sometimes 3 infantry to 1 unit of archers, but you know, often you have to make do with what you can. So yes, mounted sergeants, very good fighters. Because I've got so much money, I'm not spending a lot of money on anything. I'm just hiring and building and everything. All that I can. Mangonels, basically catapults that don't move. So I'll hire those. They're quite useful for attacking buildings and things. Laying siege and such. By the end of this episode, I did get a bit carried away with the large, build up a large army and stamp everything, because I think I ended up with about 3 large armies in the end. A lot of it composed of mercenary troops. So, I've been hearing recently that a lot of people play the Total War games purely as a sort of political strategy on the campaign map, and that they auto fight, or whatever you want to call it. Auto play the battle. Auto resolve, that's the word I'm looking for. The battles. I think you're missing out on a hell of a lot of the game if you do that, but that's just me. That's not to say that I've always played every single battle I've been in. I just find I like to make sure I wipe out an army as much as possible, using the aforementioned cavalry to chase them down once they start running away at the end of the battle. I realise obviously it takes quite a lot of time. And in these videos alone, I've done, I don't know how many battles to take each province. Maybe, well, at least 1 per province. Often 2 if they've retreated to a castle or something. Celtic warriors, ah yes. And mounted nobles. Big, strong shock troops. Yep, I'll have some of those, thank you. I'm now going around all the provinces looking for mercenaries I haven't hired yet. Urban militia. Well, if they're willing to fight, militia sergeants, horsemen, archers, spearmen, kerns. I haven't worked out what a kern is yet at this point. More Celtic warriors. Armed with fearsome polearms that do significant damage to enemies. Yep, that'll do me. If they're willing to fight, I'll have them. They have swords, I have money. And of course, doing all these mercenary things, they might not be as loyal to you, but it's much quicker than training. Spending ages training troops. Now, I'm trying to amalgamate the armies at this point, but they've got to spend time in the same province together. So all this time I'm building up all these armies. I've noticed Marcia is he's building up his armies in all the provinces that neighbour with me. Now I originally thought, maybe because I'm allied to him, he might join me in battle against the Welsh or something. But yeah, methinks it's more he doesn't trust me, and he's kind of moving his troops around so that if I suddenly decide to tiptoe over the border, he can push me out again. Or at least he can try. Yeah, so at the moment I've got, 12,500 florins. By the end of this spending spree of an episode, I think I might actually be in the red by the time I finish, because what I hadn't thought of at the time was that this army takes a lot of upkeep. Yeah, at this point I still wasn't sort of sure whether I was going to go straight into Mercia, or because Wales still exists, I'd just go and bash them. So I'm currently working out how big an army I can have, how many men I've got. So I've got 942. I can't have more than 960 men. So that's a full army right there. Also end up with a lot of princes coming of age in this. So yeah, leave a unit behind. So obviously by this point I've settled on, yes, I'm going to attack Wales. Just checking all the other provinces. Okay. Mercia's still moving troops around. The Welsh have decided they cannot win the battle and are retreating. And for a brief moment here I sort of forgot that they ran away into the castle. I was about to move into Powys and then I remembered. So we've got a prince with an odd number of toes, lovely. And another prince has got weak principles but is also a great warrior. That one doesn't make any sense to me, but oh well. Oh, part of Wales hasn't been taken by the Welsh themselves, it's still held by rebels, so they haven't got as many provinces to take over as I thought. 3 units of archers. Slightly overkill sending their slot in, but just seeing what Marcia's got in that region. He doesn't join me in battle at any point in this, but I thought he might. So yes, the money is going down. It was 13.5, it's now down to 12 something. Castle assault. 1,727 against 173. Almost exactly 10 times the size. Now this battle should have just been a walkover, but I think stupidly I tried to do it my usual way of positioning archers all around the outside and shooting them from the outside. But of course when the enemy consists of only archers, it would be much more effective just to send the cavalry in. Flatten them all. You live and learn. Now, I don't know why the pause here. I think the girlfriend walked in and asked me something and I stopped to talk to her briefly. Go away, woman. Oh. Phone's just vibrated. Sorry if you heard that. So I'm working out where to position the catapults for best effect. Again, bit of overkill when you can see through their walls, but you know. It's a nice effect. I don't remember in the previous game, Shogun Total War, I don't remember catapults or anything being used. They were obviously used in the new one when it came out, Shogun 2, but not in the original, I don't think. Okay, so archers at the front, loose formation because they're taking on other archers. Get them marching forwards. It's interesting that archers and missile troops, I think they have fire at will selected automatically. But the catapults and things, you have to actually tell them you want to fire. Excuse me. Some of these earlier battles, I agree, can be a bit boring because it's usually a walkover, and it can be quite slow, and so to that extent, I suppose I can see why people auto resolve the early battles. Now, this is a weird thing I've noticed. You can't walk on the little mound that's around the warrior's hold in the middle. You can't walk on it. So the troops kind of all mill together in one area. Bit of a glitch. Oh, and the first building's collapsed. Something else that you don't appear to be able to do in this one, that you can do in other games like Rome and Shogun 2 and things. I don't think you can do fire arrows in this one at any point. Flaming arrows, fire arrows, or whatever. So I was watching a bit of the some of the other YouTubers that got to go to what was the castle called? Castle in Essex that a lot of them went to for the sort of preview Thrones of Britannia. One of them, who is, should we say, more of a historian than a gamer, I'm not going to mention any names, was saying that he wasn't too impressed by how the cavalry fought in these games, because they didn't fight like cavalry, they were just more like mounted infantry. I think yes, but I think what he means is that cavalry would charge in for an attack, hit people, crash into the enemy, do the damage, and then pull back and do it in a series of waves like that. I think he expected the computer to do that automatically. You can somehow tell them to charge in and out in bursts, but yeah, I don't think anybody told him really how to play the game. The fact that you can get cavalry to fight like that, but you have to tell them to do it. You have to tell them to charge into the enemy and then tell them to run out again. But hopefully now he's had a taster of the game, he'll play more of it and find out for himself. Something else I don't think you can do. It'd be interesting to see if you can do it in Thrones when it comes out. Do you remember in the original Rome, you could view a settlement just any time you wanted? You could click on a settlement and click view settlement on the battle map or something, and it would just show you the settlement as it was with all the people walking around and whatever. It'd be interesting to see if you could do that in... I don't think you could do it in Rome 2. I didn't play an awful lot of Rome 2. I wasn't impressed. I think and as far as Attila's concerned, I've only ever played the bit of the tutorial. I'm looking forward to Thrones purely because it's set in Britain. Goes into a lot more detail of British history. It's not to say I don't find other history interesting, but it's just interesting to see what they make of this. I remember playing Medieval 2, Britannia campaign, and being excited that there were castles and towns in it mentioned, like Arundel Castle, because that's not very far from where I live. It's just interesting seeing, you know, my home county represented in a video game. Because I've been to Arundel Castle, not for years. I need to go again, actually. Probably haven't been since, oh god, 15 years at least. Yeah, maybe that's something I'll do. I'll actually go to Arundel Castle at some point soon. My girlfriend's always trying to drag me off to nature reserves and bird watching and things, so my revenge is dragging her around places like the Tank Museum. Well, she did buy me a Portsmouth Dockyard thing for my birthday. We never got round to going in the end. That was a shame. Life. Make the most of it while you can. There's a mathematician professor said something to me once. He said, I've got this wonderful theory about reincarnation, but hey, you only live once. Never mind. Anyway, yes, the battle. Sorry. So I flattened 2 houses. This shows you the accuracy of the catapults. Catapults are aiming at the troops, the enemy infantry. And so far they've knocked down 2 buildings and a wall. Yes. One thing I think I find out later on, when I'm attacking a more heavily defended fort, you can't put the catapults too close to the walls because they just can't shoot the walls in front of you. I think at this point I haven't worked out how to call in my reinforcements, because it keeps telling me at the bottom you have 10 units of reinforcements, blah blah blah. I was trying to get the 2 units that have run out of ammunition, I was trying to get them to withdraw. I was actually pressing route, I think, to start with, so that I can call in my reinforcements, because I think in Shogun, the original Shogun, your reinforcements arrived only after other troops had left the battle. I think that's how it worked. I haven't played it for ages. I've also managed to flatten their Warrior Hall, Great Hall, whatever it is. It's an amusing, very basic fire effect, but you know, it does the job. You can tell that it's on fire. Excuse me. So yes, this battle has already gone on far too long. Even I will admit that. I've already got my 1 unit of cavalry, which happens to be my general. He's sitting there waiting by the opening in the wall to charge in and kill all before them. So there's another hole made in the wall. Again, I don't think I told them at any point to actually shoot at the wall, but anyway, yes, to call in reinforcements, I keep trying to tell various troops units to leave the battlefield in the hope that their place will be taken by other troops. Not that I need the reinforcements, but it'll be interesting to see what turned up. It's actually top right hand corner. There's two little flags. One of them you can click on. That's how you call in your reinforcements. I'll work that out in another battle later on. All is breached again. This battle's going to cost me more in repair bill than anything else. I've sped it up at this point. Get the archers to kill as many as possible. It is working though. They're not. I'm inflicting a lot more casualties on them than they are on me. We've got our Celtic warriors here, wearing very girly trousers, bare chest, probably blue woad as well, but you can't see it. It's an interesting point, isn't it? The Greeks and the Romans in particular used to come across various barbarian tribes, or what they considered barbarian tribes, in both directions actually, east and west of the Mediterranean. You know, the Persians and Parthians and whatever in the east, and the Celts, Gauls and Britons in the west. All the barbarians on both sides, they wore trousers. I believe that's where the word pyjama comes from. It's the Persian. It literally means like cloth trouser in the Persian language. It's two words like pyjama or something like that. Pyjama. But the Romans thought it was girly to wear, you know, women wear trousers, men wear skirts. How times change. So I finally got fed up with shooting them all and just gone for the all-out charge. It's interesting as well, I suppose historically it's interesting that the having a sword made you much higher in status than a spear. I remember when I first heard that years ago, I remember thinking it was a bit odd, because obviously a spear's got a lot more reach, but I suppose potentially a sword is a lot more devastating once you get in to the closer fighting. But also it's the fact the amount of energy and skill needed to make a sword. One huge piece of metal, up to, well, I don't know, 3, 4, if you're using the old claymores and Zweihanders and, you know, big two-handed swords, they could be sort of 6, 7 feet long. There's a hell of a lot more energy and resources just in metal to make it than a spear. A spear, you just need, what, 3, 4 inches of steel, and then the rest is just a wooden pole, maybe with a 2 or 3 inch balancing. I can't think what the name of it is. The other end of a spear, they have a big lump of metal that balances out the weight of the head end, like a pommel on the handle of a sword, but at the end of a spear handle. If you know the name, let me know in the comments. My brain's gone dead. It's quite early morning when I record these. You know, I've only just got up. I have to do it early morning to let the videos process and then spend all day uploading. So, we won the battle. I'm afraid I wasn't paying attention to the casualty figures, but I think it's safe to say I won. So we're back to the map. I'm now trying to decide whether to carry on attacking the Welsh in Powys or go straight into Defet. And knock out the mercenaries or rebels or whatever you want to call them. Something I've always thought about Wales ever since I was probably about 12. I don't know why, but Wales has always looked like a pig's head to me. you've got the bit down the River Severn down the bottom, below Gwent here. That's kind of its chin. Then you move up where Defet is, that's kind of the nose, and the mouth is sort of the bit in the middle. Then you go up, going up towards, what does that say? Gwynedd. Up there. That's sort of the top of the head and the ears. It's one of those things, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Wales is a pig. No offence to any Welsh. It's just how I see it. But then there's a couple of islands up off the west coast of Scotland that look like a penis, so yeah. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. So another attack. This time on some rebels. And this was the first. You can tell we're supposed to be fighting in, Snowdonia or Black Mountains, Brecon Beacons, that kind of. Yep, those are definitely mountains by Total War standards. I think, am I right in saying this battle, I think they're all, it's like 6 units of archers is what makes up the enemy forces. I think I did play this bit once, and then forgot to save it and had to do this battle and the previous one. I had to do it again. So what you're seeing, this is the second time round, which is why on this occasion I'm not faffing around trying to get archers or anything into position. I'm just horses. There's very light armed men over there. Go and kill them. I don't know why the horses stopped. Oh, I was telling them to move, wasn't I? So, pause. You attack you. You attack you. You attack them. General, you can also attack them. When there's that many, you don't want to just send your general charging into a big mass of men just in case any of them get lucky. I mean, Richard the Lionheart was killed. Spent decades crusading. Decided to attack a French castle on his way back. Can't remember why. Probably just because they were French and he was English. Oh, I think he spoke French. Being a Norman. Attacked a French castle and was killed by a crossbow bolt through the neck. A very lucky shot from one of the defenders. I think the man's name is actually recorded in history, although I can't remember the name. Supposedly, while the king was dying, because he took days to die from an infection from the splinters and things. Supposedly, while he was dying, he called the soldier to his bedside and pardoned him, and I think probably congratulated him on a good shot or something. Although he was officially pardoned, I've got a feeling once the king died a few days later, his men took their revenge on the poor little Frenchman. Something I've dragged up from the bottom of my memory somewhere. So, something I never really used to do much when playing these games and later games. I never used to bother putting cavalry into wedge formation. I know it's supposed to be a lot more effective, but it's kind of the I like to think of cavalry as the hammer, and the infantry as the anvil. I always think putting them into wedge formation, that's kind of more of a pickaxe or chisel. In the past, I've always told them just to charge on block, as a block, and smash into the enemy. But I suppose if you're trying to split a line, and I suppose in the old days, you're charging through. Going back to what a certain YouTube historian has said, cavalry being used to split infantry lines, wedge formation is a lot more effective because they can stick themselves into the wedge, they can charge straight through the line, curve round left or right, and attack the sides and rear of enemy units, enemy troops. I think it was Alexander the Great that is credited with the first time using cavalry, a cavalry charge to break an infantry line head on, because obviously back then everybody was fighting in the hoplite formation, the phalanx formation. Hoplites fighting in phalanx formations, or phalanx, depending on. I always say phalanx. And of course, horses and spears. Horses running into spears. They don't like it. So yeah, chariots on the other hand. Chariots a bit more meaty perhaps, but cavalry charging into infantry was a big no-no in warfare for centuries. It's supposed to be Alexander the Great. Or maybe I'm just remembering that from the film. Don't know. Okay, so we're coming to the end. I'll say the end. This is the first half. When you see this, it'll all be put together into one bit, but end of the first half hour. I had to pause at this point because the girlfriend had cooked dinner and I had to go and eat it. Anyway, so in the next half, so we've pushed Wales out of half of Wales. The next one will be pushing them further out of Wales. I think they just tried to. He wanted to propose peace by marriage or something, but anyway. So the second half, Ireland has sent an emissary. He wants to propose an alliance. I'm not currently or anywhere near attacking Ireland yet, so anyway, I've accepted. Vice and virtue summary. Got one is a gentle knight, one has an approachable manner. Ethelred is a hedonist. He's a little overweight. Pleasure of the flesh, good food, good wine, but he's also got the killer instinct. Sometimes I wonder about how they dish out these vices and virtues, because that's the same person. I don't know. There's a lot I don't know. I did a philosophy and politics degree. Philosophy is about asking awkward questions, and politics is about not answering them. Anyway, yeah, it's got quite a few new princes, so suddenly I've got high-ranking generals. How one of these princes ended up being a higher rank? Look, he's 5 stars. He's a higher rank than the king. How does that work? More things. Money's gone down. It's now 9,000 florins. Again, at this point, I don't think I'd actually noticed. Or if I had, I was too busy killing everything in front of me. So yes, there are 10 playable factions in the New Thrones. I'm going to play as the Saxons because, as I've said before, I'm from Sussex, South Saxon. It's my neck of the woods. Be interesting to find out who you're all going to play as. I think a lot of people are either going to go specifically for the Vikings, because it's all about, especially in this version of the game, the early version, this was called the Viking Invasion. But I think a lot of people will do like I've done. They'll play as the faction that's closest to where they come from. So whether they're Welsh, Scots, Irish, Saxon, Mercian, Picts, or wherever, or just the Vikings because they like the idea of horny helmeted warriors raping, sacking, pillaging and stealing. I need to watch a bit more of the Vikings series on Amazon Prime as well. I don't know why, never quite got into it. But then again, Man in the High Castle, that I thought would be really up my street. But I watched about 3 episodes and kind of went, I don't know, it just didn't hold my attention. Maybe I need to give it a bit more of a go. So, we've got a new type of catapult coming in. Proper catapult. It's a shame in these ones. In the original Shogun, I'm sure there were like different levels of installation you could do, like the full version and the whatever. If you had the full version, when another general sent you an emissary, it would bring up. It would do the animation, you know. You'd be sat there with big doors, and the doors would open, and the emissary would walk in and ask you the question, and so on. It's a shame they didn't carry that on, as far as I can make out. Because it'd be interesting. I suppose they did it for ease of making the game. That probably took up a lot more processing power and production time and all the rest of it. So, next battle against the Welsh. This time it's against a proper fort, which is actually defended on 2 sides by a cliff face you can't climb. But again, I outnumber them almost 10 to 1, so I'm not too worried. I think this is where I found out you can't just fix your catapult in front of the walls, because they can't hit them from there. It's not like Rome, for example. I know I keep bringing that up, but it's the one I've played most. I apologise. In Rome, you can move the catapults around, albeit very slowly, but they're on wheels, they can move. How accurate that is, I don't know, because certainly in the medieval times, this is how they did it. They build up huge earthworks and then plonk the artillery on top of it and lob stuff, but that's during the siege as opposed to. But yeah, you know, they'd lob stuff over the walls like rocks, all sorts of things. If they were doing sort of psychological warfare, they'd early form of psychological warfare, they'd throw the heads of captured soldiers. They'd throw those over. So, you know, you imagine you're hiding inside, you're being fired at with arrows and rocks and all sorts, and suddenly one of your decapitated friends' heads flies past you and lands at your feet or something. Also, early forms of germ warfare, they'd throw dead cows over to drop just disease and filth and yuck and smell throughout the castle. I read recently something about, was it one of the Ottoman Empire battles where they used the catapults there to fire beehives into a city that he was laying siege to, and the bees all flew out of the hives and stung everybody, and it was kind of supposedly the straw that broke the camel's back. It was after months of siege and lack of food, now they're having bees like early cluster bombs thrown at them. So this is the first game in this, or first battle in this game where I've actually where I've actually fighting a well dug in, well made fort. And unlike, they haven't got towers on the walls, but I think what's actually happening here is the tower in the middle is firing a constant stream of arrows, which is why I'm losing so many men. If you look at the casualty figures at the moment, I haven't killed half as many as they've killed of me. So one thing that the Mangonels can fire at is that tower. So I'm going to try and bring the tower down. By this point I've already realised I can't fire at the gate that's directly in front of me because it's too close, so I've got to do it the old-fashioned way. Oh, that's something I didn't actually notice during the battle. I think they are... Are they throwing a torch at it or something to set fire to it? I hadn't noticed. Next time I fight a battle in a fort, I'm actually going to focus on that. Yeah, they're throwing a torch at it. Huh. Like in Shogun 2. Shogun 2, they all walk up to it and throw like fire grenades at it. So I've brought down the tower, so in theory I'm not being shot so much anymore. I've worked out at this point, as well as knocking the gate down, I can knock down... Well, I can then knock down the wall at the back to let my men in at the front. So I'm trying to move the feared men out the way so that these guys, what were they? I didn't see what they were. I'm rubbish at this commentary. I apologise. But yes, I think they're the Kerns. They're actually spearmen. I thought they were like crossbows or something. But
the enemy walls are breached. Onward to victory.
yeah, speed up the time a bit. Let them throw their spears. There's holes in the wall. I think the enemy's got a number of Celtic warriors in there, so I was trying not to... I didn't necessarily want to charge straight in, because we all know charging a large army through a small hole defended by well-trained, well-equipped and highly motivated troops, you might kill them eventually, but you're going to lose a lot of men doing it. Okay, losing men in this. I've got such huge armies, I'm not too worried about losing men. Casualty figures are still ridiculously in their favour, so this was not my biggest success. I've done better. Get the cannons to run out of the way. Yeah, that unit of archers, it's not good. Started with, what, 50 or 60 of them? Down to 11. Oh. Mental note. I think I said this last time. When you outnumber the enemy 10 to 1, just charge in and kill them. As Nelson said, or supposedly said, never mind the manoeuvres, just go straight at them. So, yes, but Nelson, you're a military genius and a hero. I'm a twat. Anyway, yes. In you go and kill them. Sergeant, go and kill that man. Yep, select everybody.
The enemy general is dead.
March them straight in the front door.
Unfortunately slain before the pox could kill him.
Enemy general's been killed. Casualty figures are coming back into my favour. They're about equal at the moment. Which, when you consider I outnumber them 10 to 1, is not good. Not good at all. but the Welsh are a tough lot. It's supposed to be Wales. It has more castles in it per how can I put it? The equivalent of sort of per square mile for the area than any other part of the United Kingdom, because they were the most rebellious country region throughout the medieval period, all the way up until a few hundred years ago. Britain just has such a history of fighting. We'll fight each other, we'll fight anybody that comes near us. It's ridiculous after a while. I think I read somewhere that during the Roman Empire, most regions, Gaul and Italy and Carthage, Spain, all the different regions, each one only needed one Roman legion present to keep it under control. Britannia needed 3 legions. I mean, granted, we were the border of the not the border, well, I suppose border, yeah, the frontier, if you like, of what's this? Sorry, I've just arranged a marriage there, and I can't remember who it was. But yes, during the Roman period, Britain was the front line. It was kind of as far as the Romans got to the west. They never got to Ireland, and they didn't get very far into Scotland. And it needed 3 legions to keep it under control. And they needed all 3 of those when Boadicea's revolt in, was it first century AD? Needed all 3 legions to put her down. Somewhere somebody's put together a map of all the countries Britain has and hasn't invaded or fought with at some point. I think if there's 217 different countries in the world, there's only 22 countries that Britain hasn't fought with at some point in our history. At some point I was writing down a list of British military firsts or records. So a couple of them have been broken in recent years by other nations. Until this year, 2018, sorry. It was a British sniper held the record for the longest kill shot in history. Back to the game briefly. I've just found that I can't. In later games and things, you can amalgamate units. So these two, there's only 21 men left in one unit of archers and 9 left in the other. And they're both mercenary archers. They're both the same type of unit. So in later games, I can amalgamate the two to make a larger unit, but for some reason I can't in this. There's probably a way of doing it, but I haven't worked it out. But yes, British military firsts. So the longest sniper kill was held by Corporal of Horse Craig Harrison of the Blues and Royals Household Cavalry. Some ridiculous thing like a 1.5 mile shot in Afghanistan was recently broken by a Canadian sniper, I believe. Completely smashed the record by like another 800 metres or something ridiculous. For a while we held the record for the longest bombing run in history, flying Vulcan bombers down to the Falkland Islands during the Falklands conflict in 1982 and having to refuel it about 12 times in the air on the way there. I thought that record still stood, and then I read that in the first Gulf War the Americans were sending, I think it was B-52s, all the way from America to the Gulf, refueling over like over Britain and Cyprus as they went or something ridiculous like that. We still hold the record for being one half of the shortest war in history, the Anglo-Zanzibar War. It lasted, records say, anywhere between 38 and 42 minutes, depending on what sources you look into. And it was the typical British Empire: sail in a gunboat, blast everything you can at an enemy until he gives up. And yeah, the casualty figures, again, something ridiculous like 400 enemy dead, and Britain, we just got one sailor that was wounded. What other military firsts? Obviously at one point the British Empire covered about a quarter of the globe. Not anymore. Well, now it's called the Commonwealth. Like I said, I really need to write these things down because my brain only holds so much information at one time. I think another British record, the Challenger 2 tank, or any members of the Challenger tank, have never been lost to an enemy in battle. There was one that was taken out by another Challenger in a friendly fire incident. Oh, that's something. Challenger tank holds the record for the longest kill shot on a moving target, I believe. Because until recently, I think a lot of them are still fitted with rifled guns, because the British military like to use HESH, high explosive squash head ammunition, whereas a lot of other nations in NATO have gone over to using sabot rounds and you can't fire sabot from rifled guns, which is why the American A1 Abrams, for example, M1 Abrams, fires a sabot round, but it has a smooth bore gun. Britain, we've always preferred to use rifled guns, and a rather old-fashioned, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, high explosive squash head ammunition. And yes, I believe that so it's a Challenger tank holds a record for a kill shot on a moving target. We're now moving over to smoothbore guns to keep up with the rest of NATO. Excuse me. What other records? Yeah, never lost a Challenger to an enemy tank. There was one Challenger that survived something ridiculous like thousands of rounds of machine gun fire, 70 rocket propelled grenades, and even a Milan anti-tank missile fired at it, and all it did was, I think it blew a track off and knocked out the gunner's or the driver's sight, or the gunner's sight. It knocked out one of the viewing devices. And the crew just sat inside it nice and safe until the cavalry arrived. Then it was taken away. The REME, the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers, spent about 6 hours working on it, and it was back in service. Those of us that have been in the military and such, particularly in the British military, we will argue that the Challenger 2 is the best tank in the world, purely because we've never lost one to enemy fire. But there are those that complain. I mean, there's a documentary, the top 10 tanks. The Challenger came 7th, and they put things like the Abrams in, was it first or second place? I can't remember now. I think it was second, along with a load of other main battle tanks like the French Leclerc and the German Leopard. They put them in all in one group as the main battle tank. But their argument against the Challenger was it was too expensive to build. And of course my argument is, yes, that's because it works. We don't go in for the so much the Russian way of doing things, it's good enough to do the job. Because they put, I think they put the T-34 top in that documentary as the war-winning tank because it was good enough. You could build enough of them quick enough to do the job. Yeah. What was it Lenin used to say? Quality has a quantity all of its own. I've got to have a drink. Sorry, getting carried away talking about history. What was I supposed to be doing? Oh yes, Thrones of Britannia, Viking invasion and such. So, in this battle, these Welsh rebels, if you like, they've done the usual hill camping thing that everyone does in Total War. So I've suckered them in down the hill, and they're going to march up the sides and rear, and smash into bits. Ignore the casualty figures; they will change in a minute. Do not adjust your set. Right. So at least I've got a bit more cavalry in this, even though one of them is a prince and one's the king. Yes, cavalry are invaluable in this game for this sort of thing, but don't rely on them unless it's like really heavy cavalry, and even then. Again, I'm going to reference Shogun. The original Shogun game, I remember all the time, all I ever tried to do, I knew I'd sort of made it in the game when I could train and use heavy cavalry. Because Yari cavalry, as they were known, which is just spear-armed cavalry, and cavalry archers, both very useful, both very quick, both very good for flanking and chasing down the enemy when they're running away, and catching enemy generals when they're running away, particularly. But having an entire unit of about 60 or more heavy cavalry, I always kind of saw it as you'd made it in the game. You could do some serious damage to whatever enemy you came across with that. I suppose in this I've got arguably 4 units of heavy cavalry at the moment. Yeah, they're running away, but a bit slow going uphill. There's my king getting stuck in. I suppose it's almost appropriate. I'm recording this, the day after St. George's Day. And we've just had a new royal prince born. Bets on the names. Arthur's quite popular. What did I suggest? Is it Arthur, Edward, David, I think? Or Albert? Albert, Arthur, Edward, David. Not that I'm getting distracted at all. As you can guess, the battles are rather repetitive in the early stages. Oh, David, Arthur, Edward was my suggestion originally, but people are liking Arthur or Albert. Oh well. Sorry, Got distracted, had to check my phone for something. Right, yes. God, I'm rubbish at this. So, just glancing down at the money, I'm down to 2,548 florins. I think it was about this time in the game I realised I was getting low on monies. The year is 817 AD, so we're getting closer to the starting date for Thrones of Britannia, as it will be when it comes out. But I've nearly conquered Wales. So, just moving the final bit of the army. Oh yes, woodsman. Axe-wielding, sort of hunter types. Sounds good to me. Deciding what troops to send up against Wales. Again, Marcia is moving all of his units along. So, this is the first kind of large resistance force. Resistance? The largest army I've had to fight so far. It's just under 700 men, but I've got 1,700, so more than 2 to 1. Fair fights are for losers. So yes, in this one there's a great big hill that separates the two forces. The enemy army is over there somewhere. And my idea was to get all my troops on top of the hill as fast as possible. And then I look at, oh crap, there he is. He's just the other side of the hill as well. I thought he'd be further away. So I'm just seeing what he's got. Archers, peasants, not impressed so far. Royal bodyguards, got 4 units of royal bodyguards, so it's the king and 3 princes. A few Celtic warriors. Not too worried. But yes, it means in these sorts of things, whoever gets to the top of the hill wins. If you were evenly numbered. So, yes, up the hill. Get a move on. Try and get them just over the crest of the hill. So that the enemy has to march most of the way up the hill to get to them. Get the cavalry close by as well. At least from there it's quite good. The catapults can fire straight over the hill from where they are. I sped up time and then went, oh crap. He's made it a lot further up the hill than my troops have. So at this point I thought, well, hang on a minute. I want to protect the artillery. Always protect your guns. So in a minute I start putting troops, because I've noticed that the cavalry appears to be making a beeline for my mangonels. So I'm sending the cavalry forwards because they're the quickest to block them off. Head them off at the pass, etc. And then have the infantry follow up in a minute. Get them to run because I need them there like yesterday. The other 2 units of cavalry in front of that catapult. I never understood what they meant by use cavalry for screening tactics. I never knew what screening tactics were. It is kind of this. It's using them to fill a gap where if you need soldiers there almost immediately, you can throw them into the gap purely because they can move much faster than anything else, and hold off the enemy for long enough until your anvil arrives for the cavalry to smash against. Yeah, you can tell the battle is important when I keep pausing it because I'm not happy with what's going on. So, as the enemy king and the princes have decided to just engage my army head on, I thought, well, I might as well oblige. I've got troops, sorry about this, I'm getting a dry throat. I thought I've got troops that are slowly coming around the sides, so smash. Select these two troops, put them sort of there. Don't want anybody creeping through the line and taking out the catapult crews, even though the catapults can't really fire at anything at the moment, but they're useful for annoying enemies at range. So in that respect they are useful. Yes. Maybe I'm not cut out for this commentating stuff. So we've got archers there. I don't think... yeah. Whether that was deliberate or not, I didn't actually bring any archers into this battle. Always play to your strengths. So, I've got more infantry than they have archers, so I'm going to flatten their archers with the infantry. Somebody once described, I think it was actually somebody within Creative Assembly themselves, described Total War as rock, paper, scissors on a huge scale. I suppose you could say that, well, archers are missile troops. Archers are the paper. What would you say? The infantry is the rock, and cavalry is scissors? Do you agree with that? Let me know in the comments. Got one unit that's debating running away. I'm thinking, what are you running away for? And then I realised, oh, you're slightly surrounded. There's one unit not doing anything. They're just standing there. They've got an enemy unit nearby that could do with some killing. So yes, this was the unit that was debating whether to run away or not. It's because they've got an enemy unit both sides and they feel kind of threatened. As you would. But the casualty rate is definitely in my favour. The catapults are now firing again. But yeah, that little button down the left hand side of the screen, listing the men that you've captured, or the number of men that you've captured, that I was always used to it being at the end of the battle. Oh, excuse me, I'm having a stretch. Oh, I should probably pause the thing before doing that, but anyway. Yeah, the being able to kill the men that you've captured during the battle. I was always used to doing it at the end, again like in Rome, where you wait till the end and it tells you how many you've captured. So the Welsh king is on his own, so I've just surrounded him with Viking raiders and Celtic warriors and getting my own cavalry involved. Throw everything at him that you can. He survives a hell of a long time. This sort of annoys me in these games because if that was my thing right there, if that was my king, I wouldn't be keeping him around in amongst the men, the enemies surrounding him. I'd be trying to get him out of there, and guaranteed he'd probably die on the way out or just die from fighting. I swear there's sort of bias, if you like, in these games that the enemy general will always survive much longer than yours will, regardless of what difficulty setting you've got it on. Again, let me know in the comments what you think of that. If any of you made it this far and you've not just given up because I've been coughing and sneezing and stretching and just meh. I've always said I never have hay fever, but we've just had a bit of a hot spell, so maybe I do. Yeah, at this point I realised that I've sort of chased off their infantry, but their archers are just standing there, and I've got militia sergeants standing there doing nothing, and basically there's still lots of enemy that need killing, and my men aren't doing anything about it. The enemy king finally died. Good. That frees up those 5 or 6 units there that I've been using to kill him. They can go and kill other stuff. Things. People, that's it. That's the word I'm looking for. So, in what is it? Less than 2 hours? No, it's just over 2 hours. Probably close to 2.5 hours. I've taken most of certainly the south coast of England, and now the west coast of England. Britain, Wales. Oh, I don't know. I think it probably took a bit more than 2.5 hours in real life to unite the whole of Britain. Apparently I tried to, because I didn't kill them, I tried to ransom them, and they no longer need trouble your thoughts. Right, good news, you control an impressively large military force, no one else can match it. Storm in the Anglesey. First leader was killed in battle, he has no heirs, and his forces have degenerated into minor factions, they no longer present any real threat. Good. Your leader gains a rank, achieved a 4th rank, and various things have been finished being built. Vice or virtue gain, King Bethric first as a steward. Good. You can see Marcia is gathering all of his troops. And I've just come across... Who are they? The Picts? Anyway, yes. I'll send a thing over to find out who they are. And send a spy in to see what Mercia is up to. So he's got quite a large army there. But I'm banking on him not being able to fight on all sides. So yes, getting rather low on money at this point. 1,500 florins left, having had about 15,000 at the start. I need to go and get a drink or something. So yes, this has been the beginning 2 episodes of the Saxon playthrough of the Viking invasion for Medieval 1. The precursor to Thrones of Britannia. Still looking forward to Thrones of Britannia coming out. Well, at this point, is it a week away? It's 10 days. So yes, in the next episode of this, I'll be taking on Marcia. And he's got quite a large army, so I've no idea how that will go. Anyway, I've been Norris the Noob, and this has been Medieval Total War, Viking Invasion. See you later.